And that revolves around, collegiate sports and the NCAA, one of my favorite whipping boys. Now, don't get me wrong. As I've pointed out numerous times, I'm a big collegiate sports fan. I really, really enjoy college football in the fall. And, gosh, I love my college basketball in the springtime, or, from about January on. I start following all the college football, or college basketball, rather. But the NCAA itself, kind of I don't know. I'm not sure whether I like them or not, I'll be perfectly honest. I put together, I frequently mention our website, frathousesports.net. If you've not visited it before, you really should, because obviously while it is home to and houses all of our 5 Minutes at the Frat House video productions, we also do have original written content up there from a number of contributors and bloggers that I've been able to secure over the past year, and I frequently write for it myself. In fact, my first love really is writing. I prefer writing over all other forms of communication. And I wanted to bring this up last week, and that was an article that I put up on the frathousesports.net page with regard to the NCAA and their own personal finances. And what I did was I went back and I researched numerous public statements, public articles that had been published in various sources going back to, about a year ago. And I put them together in a kind of mosaic of economic finance revolving around the NCAA, which, in my opinion, once I was done with it, had me coming back and scratching my head and saying, what's wrong with this picture? If you go over onto frathousesports.net, you can find the article, which is titled, While NCAA Rolls in Cash, Division I Programs Struggle. And I have all of the different articles and sources that I used for the article cited, so you can actually go to those original articles. And this is the picture that I paint in the article. The first one dates back to an article that I discovered from July 9 of 2012, last year, in which it was reported that NCAA President Mark Emmert would be paid by the NCAA between his base compensation salary and other perks and other benefits. He would be paid somewhere in the area of about $1.6 million. I want you to give that some thought for a moment. Just let that sink in. Mark Emmert, $1.6 million. Yeah, we see this guy by, maybe 3-4 times a year? Huh? That's about as much as we see Mark Emmert. I want you to also keep in mind that the NCAA is a registered nonprofit organization with the federal IRS. So, nonprofit organization, and the head of it, Mark Emmert, making $1.6 million. An article dated November 19th of last year cited down numerous Division I, and I think there were also some Division II, head football coaches' salaries. Leading the list, Alabama's head football coach, Nick Saban, making an annual salary of $5.47 million. Let's not forget, there's also an additional $700,000 bonus included on top of that. That's not part of the $5.47 million. Texas Longhorns football coach, Mac Brown, making $5.3 million. Bob Stutz, Oklahoma head football coach, making $4.55 million. Urban Meyer, Ohio State head football coach, making $4.3 million. Then it was reported, of course, this week, I don't know if you saw the article or the report of it, Mike Krzyzewski, head basketball coach for the Duke Blue Devils, will make just short of $10 million this year. So we have a NCAA nonprofit organization that regulates the athletic activities of schools all across the country, nonprofit organization, head of that making $1.6 million a year. We've got collegiate football coaches making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and basketball coaches as well. Third article that I cited was one that came out on May 2nd of this year, in which it was reported that the NCAA last year realized revenue of $872 million. Now, most of that, folks, coming from television contracts. That's where the bulk of that is coming from. So they realized revenue of $872 million. At the same time, they reported expenses of $801 million. Well, if we do some simple arithmetic there, you find out that the NCAA made a profit last year of $71 million. Now, I guess maybe we technically shouldn't be using the word profit because they're a nonprofit. So I'll get politically correct. I'll play their game. We'll call it a surplus. This is an organization that further went on to indicate that they have currently built up in assets. These are unencumbered assets now, folks, of $566 million. I want you to go back and remember, this is a nonprofit organization. $566 million right now sitting in the coffers of the NCAA. And last but not least, I finished it up with an article and a published report that came out on May 8th of this year, in which it was released, that of 288 Division I athletic department programs, only 23 of them made enough money to either break even or show a profit. Only 23. All right? Now, these are Division I programs. These are the creme de la creme programs in this country, which means that 92% of the Division I collegiate athletic programs, and that would include, when I'm talking about the programs, I'm including everything in there. I'm not just talking about the football programs or the basketball programs. We're including in that lacrosse. We're including in that volleyball. We're including in that any collegiate sport whatsoever, male, female, it makes no difference. The athletic departments did not make enough money to cover their own expenses, and in fact, then they went into debt. 92% of the Division I programs in this country. Now, obviously, when we're talking about Division I schools, and as I said, we're talking about the creme de la creme of collegiate schools, we're talking about the big powerhouse kinds of schools in this country. We know the ones that are charging exorbitant amounts of money for tuition and fees to their students and the students' families. Do you think for one second that these schools that are losing money on athletic programs, 92% of them, are just going to carry that red ink over from one year to the next? Heck no. They're going to pass that on to their constituencies. And their constituencies, first and foremost, are their students, their student body, and those student body families. They're not going to carry that red ink. And so while we're sitting around talking about the exorbitant amount of money that is spent on post-secondary education in this country, we have to point to the athletic programs in this country and say, what is wrong with this picture? Why are students having to pay tuition rates that are far outstripping the cost of living and inflation simply so major programs, major schools in this country can have a recruitment device? And make no mistake, that's what this is. Athletics are a recruitment device. And while they're passing along scholarships and giving free rides to athletes for their programs so that they can continue to recruit, they're losing money in the meantime and passing that loss on to students who perhaps maybe are not participating in sports whatsoever, but are there to get an education. What is wrong with this picture? I ask. You can check that article out over on FratHouseSports.net.